Welcome to the Monday, March 23rd, 2026 regular Board of Education meeting for Marcellus Central School District. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. This evening we'll begin with recognition.
Okay, we have a lot of recognition, so fasten your seatbelts. First off, just a big, huge shout out to our girls basketball team. As many of you know, they went to the Final Four in Troy on Friday afternoon. And for the first time in Marcellus history, won a sectional title. So we were hopeful that they would move on, but they did so well and we're so proud of them. So just a big shout out to the players, the coaches, and all the families that supported our girls basketball team. And if you did not know by now, we have our boys basketball team are back-to-back state champions, which is just, again, an incredible feat 2 years in a row. I'm sad Tucker Burnett, our student board member, couldn't be here tonight, but again, he was a driving force on that team. So just a congratulations again to the coaches, the players, and all the families who have shown support throughout the season and in Binghamton on Friday night. And then I do want to just give a shout out to Brian CV for helping to organize a high school assembly that was so poignant. I was able to sit in some of it. It's the story of Matt Angelillo. I don't know if any of you remember the story. He was a Skaneateles high school student at age 17. He would be 38 years old today. He lost his life in a tragic drunk driving accident. And so Brian organized this assembly. Students, we had incredible feedback from students. It was his mom that, just talked about what an amazing kid he was. And just, he made a tragic decision that night that she would never have imagined he would have done. So, again, just a shout out to Brian and the high school staff for organizing this. I do want to give a shout out to our ag program. We have Joe Killian, Caitlin Eaton, and Jenny Stratton here. They organized a professional development afternoon for the New York State Master Teacher Program. So we had probably around 35 members of the New York State Master Teacher Program who visited the Marcellus Ag facility on St. Patrick's afternoon. And as you can see here, they were right in on all of the different offerings at the ag facility. So just a kudos to the advertising and the showcasing of what we have to offer here in Marcellus. I do want to just give a little shout out to Tyler Cooper, also the mayor of Marcellus, Chad Clark, our town. We presented last week at the Onondaga Planning Symposium. And as you can see, front and center, Bronte Stahl, who is a graduate of Marcellus, and Jack Waterman, who is a current student, spoke about their work around the Green Gateway. Austin Rake is also a graduate last year. He submitted a video of his work. He was on spring break, but it was incredible. Just the whole presentation started with Mayor Clark, the town talking about the site of the Green Gateway and just the work that our students have done leading up to the site right now and the plan for that site for the future. So just an incredible showcasing of Marcellus. We had many people who came up to us after we were finished with the presentation who were like, how can we figure out how to do this in our school districts, in our towns, in our villages? So just a thank you to the students, and here Bronte is a graduate, but came back to show what the work that she has done and that work that's been carried on by our current students. And then I do want to just give a shout out, Liz Milliken. There was a New York State FCCLA conference this past week in Calhoun. And Liz Milliken won an award, the National Spirit of Advising. So a huge shout out to her and all that, the work that she does with that group. Two of our students, you can see Maddie Carver and Charlotte Stasek in this picture. They will be officers for the New York State FCCLA, and they were inducted on Thursday night, and their families were there. It was a wonderful event, but just incredible for them to be part of the board of FCCLA for New York State. We had 15 students compete Thursday and Friday. I think 15 of them won gold and will now go on to national competition in Washington, DC this summer. And here are just a few pictures of the competitors. And then our very own Don Weber, we went to a Utica National Insurance meeting today, and Marcellus Schools was awarded with titanium with honors for school safety, and there's Don accepting the award on behalf of the school district. So just yeah, all of the hard work that Don does and all of our administration and staff, our SROs, partnering with our SROs to make sure that we keep our students safe.
Good stuff. Thank you.
And that is it for recognition.
Lots to celebrate. So we'll move on to presentations.
So we have Joe Killian, Caitlin Eaton, and Jenny Stratton here with us tonight. And they're going to talk a little bit about the work that they have been doing to launch a community garden. And you guys can come right on up.
So on behalf of the agriculture program at Marcellus, I'd like to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to come speak with you, particularly about our past experiences in programming, as well as what the future is going to bring, particularly over the summer. I'm Joe Killian, Caitlin Eaton, and Jennifer Stratton. We're the three teachers in the ag program as of right now. Over the course of our little presentation here, there's the three things that we'd like to talk to you about. First and foremost is what our agriculture program has been able to do, especially with the new program and the new facility this year. And then we're going to transition into how we'd like to extend that beyond just the offerings for our kids into the community. Specifically, we're going to look at a Rooted in Learning grant that we are cooperating with Cornell Cooperative Extension with. And then finally, what that means for our Marcellus greater general community over the course of the summer. So this year, we didn't miss a beat in terms of opening up the new agricultural facility right off in the fall. Mrs. Stratton's sustainability students jumped into creating our orchard that is in the contained space. A lot of people think that's for large animals or something of that sort. The only animals we're containing are the rugrats that we teach every single day. So we've been partnering with Slate Hill Edible Farm to bring a variety of fruits to our orchard. So we have raspberries, we have blueberries and grapes. We also have a variety of apples and peach trees, varieties that you're familiar with, like the Honeycrisp, but also varieties that you're not familiar with, like the Firestar Chat apple, which has its historical roots, none other than with FDR. So if we can keep moving through there. In addition, the opportunities that we're providing at the facility don't just exist for our 6 through 12 students, but also the students in our KCH. This is a program that Caitlin's been doing for several years now, and this is the apple pressing. We're fortunate to be able to partner with Beacon Skip Orchards here to show the kids how apple cider is made. And this year we were able to do it in our own orchard, and moving forward, hopefully have these students come back and be the presenters when these trees are full size, and do the same thing with the UPK in the future. So again, this is just a kind of a cyclic activity that we hope to keep bringing back year after year as the kids continue to grow through the agricultural program here at Marcellus. So this is one of the nice photos that we have here. Believe it or not, they're all surrounding a little apple sapling that in 3 years is going to be bearing fruit. But right now, I can't imagine in about 10 or 12 years when we take the same exact photo and these kids are surrounding the trees, what a cool experience that will be. In addition, we've been continuing to extend our educational opportunities through Ag in the Classroom. This is a partnership through New York State called Ag Literacy Week. This is something that we just got wrapped up doing with the middle schoolers in the second grade in the KCH. This year's particular book was focused on seasons in the farm. So we were able to show the kids not only the different seasons in the farm by reading a book, but also demonstrate and show to them the maple facility that we have, well, we're boiling maple sap and the maple syrup. This is from a few years ago. We're going just about getting into another UPK program. Where we're going to be planting Mother's Day basil plants with the students as well, so that they're getting connected with their food, that ultimately raise their own food and then make that into their own basil pesto. So that's something, again, is a large focus of our program, is connecting our kids, whether it's the timber that we're milling on the mill or the food that we're growing in the garden. How exactly do we connect it where it's coming from and where it goes ahead and feed ourselves? So this is, again, just extension activity that we've been working, collaboration between the middle school, the high school, and the KCH. So again, this is such a wonderful experience to expand on our growing opportunities for the students. We're in the greenhouse where we're continuing to grow. Mrs. Stratton's kids are planting petunias for the third graders. So they'll be able to do a Mother's Day sale of sorts for their mothers over the Mother's Day. We're also collaborating with the Village of Marcellus to plant the hanging baskets that will be lining all of our streets in downtown Marcellus. So we'll be those are the geraniums and the hanging baskets. So again, as you guys saw, we hosted a master teacher program this past week as well as a professional development for our teachers too, to hopefully develop and foster additional opportunities for kids across the campus as to how this building and facility and opportunities can serve them moving forward. And ultimately, I think we've had a blast of success, and we continue to grow this program and reach as many kids as possible. But in addition, we also are looking to see how the agriculture program can not only be the center of our learning community here, but also the center of our greater community.
So then in comes Cooperative Extension with a grant. We had Tom Cross reach out to us from Cornell Cooperative Extension and mentioned that he had got the funding through a grant to work with a school in hopes of building a community garden. And he has heard about our program and wanted to see if we were interested. So when we met with him, we also met with a community member who was interested in starting a community garden in Marcellus. And we talked about what our goals were in the future in that space where we have our orchard, which part of the goal was to build some raised beds. And with speaking with Tom and the grant that he had, there were 3 C's that were a focus. So the classroom, the cafeteria, and the community. And we had already had an idea of connecting those things in the future. So this just gave us a little bit of a head start, this conversation. So ultimately, our goal for the classroom is many things. The first is building the raised beds, and Joe and his classes, they'll be making the lumber, they'll be building the raised beds. Jenny in sustainability science, as well as grades 6 through 8 in the middle school, will be working with plant science and picking out plants to grow. So that's the classroom component. The cafeteria, we'd like to work with Amy Mitchell to see what types of produce would be great to feature, and we could do a harvest of the month and do taste testing outside of the cafeteria to highlight some of our local produce and things that we can grow right here in our own community. And then the community connection would be that connection in the garden. So one way we'd like to incorporate community is having volunteers be able to come in over the summer and help us harvest, pick weeds, water, things like that. But also Cornell Cooperative Extension will provide educators to help us teach the community as well. So like Joe said, we want this to be a learning hub, not just for our students, but also for the community. So we envision things like when the tomatoes are ready to be picked and harvested, maybe we would have someone from Cooperative Extension teach about making salsa or sauce and how to can and prep for the winter months. So there's a long list of ideas. When we were talking with Wayne from our community and with Tom, the possibilities were endless. And we had a lot of more discussing to do, but that's where this community garden kind of started.
So just to kind of paint a broad picture of what the community garden will look like. We've got some pictures, hypothetical pictures on the board. We have a high tunnel. It hasn't been assembled yet, but that is part of our plan so that we can extend the season both in the spring and the fall. For growing things like greens. We'll have raised beds. We'll have raised beds of different heights to make them accessible to everyone. Go on, thanks. So with the grant from CCE, we're able to put in stone pathways, landscape, weed fabric. We're able to do like a really nice job to make it accessible and easy for people to move around the garden and also to make it aesthetically pleasing. We'll have a compost management system in place because as we start growing vegetables, we're going to need something to do with our waste. And this is a design that was actually created last year for the 8th grade Earth Project by Ella Hakes and Mason Heigl. They did their project on developing a community garden in Marcellus, and as part of their project, they designed a hypothetical garden space. So our plan is to start small this year with just 4 raised beds and expand from there. But you can kind of get a visual of what it might look like. And they also went to Amy Mitchell and talked with her. They did an interview and asked her what kind of vegetables she would like to see in the school cafeteria that maybe we could produce on campus. So you can see the list of vegetables that she thought would be a good fit for the cafeteria. And again, these would be things that maybe we would do taste tests with, you know, different colored carrots, things like that, different kinds of cherry tomatoes. But these could also be potentially foods that are featured once a month as the harvest of the month. So, you know, there's a lot of things there that we can grow in this garden. And our plan is that when students are in school, the produce from the garden will go to school, it will be used in the cafeteria. During the summer, when students aren't here, this is when the volunteers will come in and in trade for their help maintaining the garden, they'll take home whatever they would like from the harvest. And our plan is to donate the excess to the food pantry. The community garden. So it's not a typical community garden in that people cannot rent a bed that's theirs. They cannot plant whatever they want in their bed. They can't come whenever they want to garden, right? Because it's part of our school campus. There will be hours when people can come, staffed by a Marcellus staff member. It will be a community garden where the students are deciding what to plant based on Ms. Mitchell's recommendations. The volunteers will be there to help and assist throughout the summer, and to keep things going and to benefit from the harvest. So we envision like a weekly open garden time, probably an hour to start with, when the community members would come in and help out, and we would get the chores done and the harvesting done that needs to be done. Cornell Cooperative Extension also has offered us their master gardeners to come in and conduct workshops in the garden for community members and for students when school is in session. So we've been working with Wayne Bland from Marcellus together. He had the idea of starting a community garden in Marcellus, and Tyler Cooper was able to connect us with him. So his vision is access for fresh foods, healthy living, community empowerment, social connections, education, and access to nature. And all of these things that he was looking for in a community garden fit right into the 3 C's that the extension was looking for as well. So it's like a perfect meshing between projects. As I mentioned, it would be a series of scheduled community gatherings, and it will be supervised by MCS staff and structured in terms of what is grown. What it is not is a traditional garden where people are renting out beds, growing whatever they want and coming whenever they want. So it won't be open access. It will be during specific times. So what we need going forward is staff. Ideally, we'd like one paid staff per night on site at the garden to chaperone the volunteers that are there. For the 2026 to 2027 growing season, we were able to so Cornell Cooperative Extension put us into a second garden grant that they've been writing. And they wrote in a line to pay a staff member, so it would be a contractor. Who would be a Marcellus staff member who could be on site for the summer season. But that isn't until next summer. And if we want the garden to take off, we need to do something for this summer. So, looking forward, I think that is our one big hurdle that we need to consider with this. And we're hoping in the future that we'll be able to find a sustainable funding source to carry this forward. Does anyone have questions?
Do you envision having somebody there every evening or like what, like,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a once a week.
Once a
open
week.
garden.
Okay,
period, And we're
okay.
gonna get done what we need to get done in
Yeah,
that once a week. Potentially, depending on how things go, maybe we would need to open up the second evening, but I think we'll be able to get a lot done with a group of volunteers
Yeah,
in one
Yeah.
evening.
yeah. I mean, I think what you're doing is incredible, really, and on so many fronts, I love how you are connecting the older kids with the younger kids. I mean, that's so good for both cohorts of students and and that program or that program-based learning where they're project-based learning, where they're just, getting right involved and doing, I mean, those are the things that kids really love, and that's in connecting the kids with the community is really exceptional too, so great stuff.
Is something, just the community supported the egg facility, so it's awesome that we can give back to the
Yeah.
community. So I appreciate that. That's along the lines of what you're thinking as well.
And was this the first year you guys are doing the planners in the village?
Yeah.
Or?
New this year.
Yeah,
A lot of new opportunities are coming online just because of the opening of the facility.
sure.
And then we just expect them to continue to grow and develop as we kind of familiarize ourselves with everything in the programming, how it's all gonna work between the three of us and the district and the community.
And I noticed you mentioned the composting. Could you ever see yourself composting some of the food waste from I mean, I know it's a big project, but,
Yeah.
no,
That would be an awesome connection, I think, to
Yeah.
the cafeteria.
yeah,
So have it going both ways, food
Yeah.
to the cafeteria and waste from. And
yeah,
I think I know there's a lot of opportunities for grants to purchase like large scale composters and things like that. So that's
Yes.
something that we've been investigating.
yeah, cool.
This curriculum, you're creating this curriculum, right? You're innovating, creating it. It's incredible,
Yeah.
to put it all together. Doesn't feel like there's a model like this.
Mhm.
We're very lucky that we have all of the resources that Marcellus has.
Thank you. Appreciate you
Yes,
very
thank you.
much so much.
Thank you, thank you.
So I'm gonna continue on with presentations. I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna ask Bob Montgomery just to talk a little bit about, our superintendent's conference day last Friday, and, Mr. Killian alluded to it, that, at the egg facility, Joe, and Caitlin did a little bit of PD for our teachers. So, I will let Bob sort of give the rundown of everything that occurred that day.
Sure. So last Friday, we had our last full staff development day of the year. AM sessions, our teachers were able to build their own schedules, followed by lunch. And then, of course, we had faculty meetings scheduled and then grade level and department time. We had 22 people off campus at different area-wide conferences. We sent 12 of our teachers to the Reading League's Writing Symposium downtown in Syracuse. We also had regional art conferences, and then a couple of our PE teachers went to shadow another district to see how they work in PE every day and the system and the schedule that they do. We had another 36 people CPR and AED trained. So Daisha's Law was put into place this year, and our 15-minute video took care of the requirement. But our team decided that we wanted to move forward with another 2-hour session training. So Paul Smith from Onondaga OCs comes in, and he's now trained 70 of our staff in hands-on AED and CPR training. And we strategically chose people like our nighttime custodians because they're here with large numbers of people all the time in order to help out, and they were thrilled to be part of that. Mike Dingman and Ally Glassman offered Notebook LM, some AI with Gemini and how to make lesson planning easier. Our counselors updated our counseling plan. Our world language teachers updated their checkpoint exams for French and Spanish. Our pilot teachers continued on with their planning for benchmark assessment. And then we also had our UPK teachers looking at their assessments and what is coming up for the end of the year. So we had a lot of assessments going on this time. Tyler Cooper presented pathways, his professional pathways to 3 different sessions of teachers so that they could match what they believed are the soft skills that students need. And then Tyler was able to wrap that around with what he's seeing out there in the real world to help teachers think about ways they can or incorporate that or strengthen it in their own curriculum. The Ag Center maple syrup was a hit along with the greenhouse and then of course with the lumber mill. And then some of our teachers went on to read some more and do work with the Portrait of a Graduate. And then we finished up with a whole financial series. So New York State Teachers Retirement System came in and did a virtual presentation along with Medicare was here to help our teachers understand how to navigate that, along with some a representative from the Reagan companies came in to do some financial literacy with our teachers. So it was an action-packed day.
Thank you, Bob, for all of your work, just organizing that, and providing a myriad of opportunities for our teachers. So we've been talking in the last few meetings, just as we were developing the initial budget, and now we're getting closer to putting the final budget forward to all of you on April 6th. And I wanted to just sort of give you some of our enrollment and projections, just as we see right now. So UPK, that is, well, we will have 54 students in UPK. That's 3 sections, and that is really the mandate. It's 1 teacher and 1 TA, and those class sizes are fixed, so 18. In kindergarten right now, we have about 88 students. We're looking at around 5 sections. If that number grows, typically like 95, 96 might tip us to needing another section. Right now, we have 88. So that is always sort of a point that we're looking at carefully as we head into June. First grade will have 93 students. There will be 5 sections, so that's about 18 to 19 class size. Second grade, 102 are projected. Again, 5 sections, 20 to 21. And third grade right now, you can see there's these bubbles that occur in different grade levels. We have about 118. Our plan right now is to run 5 sections, which would be about 23 students, 24 max. And then in 4th grade, the projection is 106 students, 5 sections, 20 to 21 students. Grade 5, 115 enrollment, 5 sections, about 22 to 23 class size. And then 6th grade, we're forecasted for 103 students, about five sections, about 20 to 21 students. And then just so you can kind of get a sense of grades 7 through 12, 7th and 8th grade, you can see the bubble, there's less than 100 students. And so those class sizes with what we have forecasted are going to be anywhere between 19 and 20. Grades 9 through 12, you can see 9th grade is 109 students, 10th grade 104, 11th grade 90, and 12th grade 124. There is a wide range there, 8 to 27, because some of our classes like welding has a cap. You can only have 8 students. So that's why you see that wide range. So we're being very cognizant again in these sort of challenging budget times, looking at class sizes very carefully to make sure that, you know, we maintain what we have, but we're not holding classes with 3, 4 kids. We can't operate that way. So our administrators, our principals have done an outstanding job just forecasting our needs, our staffing needs and courses so that we could make decisions as we move forward.
Jean, I'm sorry,
Yep.
did you say that these numbers are the current year standing, or this is what
This
will
is
be for next year?
Next year.
Okay.
Projections for 26,
Oh.
27. And so I mentioned this at the last meeting, we do have to make some reductions in force, and there is not a superintendent in New York State or in all of, the US that wants to do reductions in force, but we are coming to a reality that if we don't do this now, we potentially could harm ourselves down the road, where we're, instead of making 6 cuts, we're making 12, right? So we have done a very good job of trying to be very intentional, very measured, and finding positions that really are currently not maximized. It is no secret, it's not just Marcellus, it's across central New York and even universities, that expenses are outpacing revenues. So we're looking at approximately 6 positions that we are going to reduce in force. Again, what we'll do is make those notices this week, and really it's just a notice that your position may be eliminated or reduced. And as the budget comes into more of a finalized form, some of that could change, but I feel obligated to give people enough notice that they have the ability to make some moves now if they feel like they should. So that is essentially what we're looking at in enrollment and projections. Again, we were so careful to look at things and have a good sense of staffing for next year. And Don will take it from here so that he can kind of give you a sense of where we are with our budget at this point.
Thank you. So that was probably the biggest news, I think. I'll start, I guess, with this year's budget. We instituted a spending freeze on Friday, just to kind of make sure that all discretionary spending is kind of done for the year. Materials and supplies, of course, we're going to continue to purchase all the goods that we need that are essential to support student learning for the rest of the year. But so that should hopefully help us end the year on a positive note.
And what I do want to point out, that's no different than what
Right.
Tony has been doing, the spending freezes around that time for
Yeah.
the past several years.
So last we met, the initial budget gap was originally projected about $1.5 million. The last meeting, we had identified some reduction in expenses. The budget gap was about $1 million. Shortly thereafter, the state released an updated run of state aid projections. So the initial budget was based on information that we gave, or they got from us in October. They then go back and rerun it based on updated data, updated enrollment numbers, updated expenses, and update their aid formula. So based on that basic aid, I'm projecting to decrease by quite a bit. Some of that is change in numbers, and some of that is just maybe an analysis change on my part of what I think it's actually going to be. That's made up of building aid, transportation aid, and basic per pupil aid. So I'm revising that estimate down quite a bit. Expense-based aids, textbook aid, software, hardware, again, those numbers are driven really by enrollment. And as those numbers change throughout the year, we're constantly updating that information to New York State, and they can pull that and update those numbers. So you can see some various revenue changes over in the right-hand column there. We do finally have a final employee healthcare contribution rate. It is going to be 10% this year. We were initially fearing it would be closer to 13%. We're part of a health consortium, which I think I've mentioned before, of about 20 other school districts. This is kind of a middle ground. I think the consortium itself would have liked to have gone higher, but the member districts, I think everybody felt that this was kind of a middle ground where the consortium could continue to be fiscally solvent, and districts could live with the number for now. it does sound like this is gonna be in this ballpark for the next couple of years. It has been 6, 7, 8%, but we're expecting it to be in the 10% range the next few years, driven by just expenses of the consortium. So it's our members and their expenses that we're incurring. So we can kind of see that data and forecast it a little bit. You can see below that, we have a retirement that's going to reduce expenditures by about 141,000. That's salaries, payroll tax, pension contributions, and health insurance. The 6 staff reductions that Superintendent Charlo mentioned. And the final line there is BOCES services. So Superintendent and I met with representatives from BOCES and went through the entirety of our BOCES bill line by line. It's not a significant part of our budget. In our $43 million budget, this is $3.4 million. So it's 8% of total spending. So it's important that we understand, what we're getting. And many of those costs we have very little control over. It's student needs, but we do also purchase a lot of services from BOCES, which is a smart thing to do because many of them are aided. But because of the budget that we're in, it really made sense to look at the services and see, do we need these services? Yes, we might be getting aid back on them, but if there are things that we can do without, do we need to spend the money in the first place at all? We identified about $250,000 in reduced spending. You see the number there is 155. That is because when the initial budget came out, BOCES hadn't updated their pricing for 26, 27. So we knew the services that we wanted or we're going to buy, but we didn't yet know how much more those same services are going to cost next year. So those reductions we think are going to reduce expenses by about 155,000. So at the end of the day, we still have a relatively small gap of about 218,500, which we're confident we can close a number of ways, but we're very close to presenting a balanced budget to you.
Any questions? Yeah, this is, really a struggle for us too. But we have to put forward a balanced budget. So, I guess I have some solace that we're not the only district. It's just, one of the things that I do appreciate that Tony did and Don is following suit, is really trying to give a very accurate forecast of what we're looking at. And, at the end of the year, and that's why the spending freeze, we want to make sure that we end in a good way at the end of the year. And so, I think year to year, we've always just been right where what we budgeted is what we spent. And that's really, some districts end up forecasting way more in their budget and they have more surplus. We would never have that. So our reserves are not plentiful because we budget right on the line. So I appreciate that Don has taken a similar approach to Tony and trying to be very meticulous about what we're forecasting and doing it very accurately, we hope. Any questions on anything? All right.
All right, this time we'll move on to residents' comments. Public expression at the Board of Education meetings is encouraged, and a specific portion of the agenda shall provide for this privilege. In most instances, the board shall reserve judgment regarding questions and concerns that are brought to the board's attention at a board meeting, as it is typically not prudent for the board to make instantaneous determinations. In addition, many issues that are brought to the board's attention do not require a formal determination by the board, but instead are most appropriately addressed by the superintendent of schools or persons designated by the superintendent without further board action in accordance with board policy 3220, community relations. Do we have any residents' comments at this time? All right, at this time, we'll move on to the business portion of our meeting. Item 5.1, Oswego County BOCES Cooperative Purchasing Program. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the attached resolution authorizing participation in Oswego County BOCES Cooperative Purchasing Program. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Justin.
Justin,
Second, Jen.
second Jen. Okay, questions or comments before we vote?
Schools are required to do lead testing every 3 years and all of their, really all of their water fountain sinks. And so this is really just for, city BOCES to enter into an agreement, a request for proposal for a company to do that testing.
All right, all those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 5.2, forego first reading of board policy. Resolved that the board agrees to forego a first reading of the board policy 5670, records management for the purpose of its expediency to take advantage of grant funding by April 1st. Can I have a motion? Amy,
Second.
second. Sean? Questions or comments before we vote?
Roberts require that there should be 2 readings of a policy, and so if really what we're asking is that the board forego the first reading, primarily because Tony was working on a grant and Don has picked up where he left off. And in order to take advantage of that grant, we have an April 1st deadline where our policy has to be in line with the law. So you'll see the language in that records
Yeah.
management is just referencing where those records will be stored. And so that's all you're voting for in this is simply that you'll forego that first reading so that we can move it forward to hit that April 1st deadline.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5.3, second and final reading of board policy. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the second and final reading of the following proposed board policies. You can see them there before you. Policy 7522, concussion management, policy 5670, records management. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Jen.
Jen,
Second.
second Erica. Questions or comments before we vote?
And just to point out that records management, it really has not been revised since 2009. And the language, that has been added again to be adhering to the grant, really just talks about the retention and how we will dispose of records. And it's again, just in alignment with the law.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 5.4, propositions for the 2026 annual district meeting. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the attached resolution establishing the propositions to appear on the ballot at the 2026 annual district meeting and election. And this will be a roll call vote. So Sean Edie, Vice President, how do you vote?
Aye. Yes.
Amy Bartolotta?
Aye.
Erica Paquata?
Aye.
Justin Pritchard?
Aye.
Kelly Roster is absent and I vote aye as well. Oh, Jennifer Tedesco. I'm so sorry, Jennifer.
Aye.
Aye, I apologize. Okay. All right. I didn't get a motion before we voted. Is that gonna be problematic?
Just to be formal.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. Before we begin, resolve that the Board of Education approves the attached resolution establishing the propositions to appear on the ballot at the 2026 annual district meeting and election. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Sean.
Sean,
Second, Jen.
second Jen. All right, and I don't think we need to vote
No,
again.
I,
Okay,
but just out there. it's
Yeah.
Really, all we're doing is establishing that the budget will be put before the voters. 365 passenger school buses, 136 passenger bus with wheelchair lift. And 110 passenger van, as well as the Marcellus Free Library proposition. And so those are things that you see on the propositions every year. Just so the public knows, we have a replacement plan for our buses, so we're simply following that plan and that has also been forecasted in the budget for multiple years.
Mhm.
So just to.
And just to be clear, these are not electric buses.
No,
We're, yeah.
not electric buses.
Yeah. All right, at this time, we'll move on to item 5.5, which is the discussion of school bus stop arm camera program.
Yes, so I mentioned at the last meeting that I was approached by Onondaga County to see if Marcellus would be interested in entering into the school bus stop arm safety program. And so essentially, this is how it works. Onondaga County contracts with a company, and that company comes out to a school district and free of charge puts little cameras on every school bus, so no cost to the district. And if a car passes the school bus stop arm and they're captured on that camera, that person receives a ticket. That cost of the ticket is split between Onondaga County and this company. So that's, you know, obviously the angle of why this company is doing this. Mr. Pritchard asked a question just about the security of the data once it's captured and vehicle plate number, all of that. And so I did get an answer. Vera Mobility, and I'm just gonna read it because it's technical. Vera Mobility utilizes a secure cellular network to transfer evidence data to our on-premise servers with a variety of details, security requirements that are detailed below. So they follow a protocol. They secure the main video on their server vault and then build evidence packages off to copy and send to Onondaga County. And so all of it is in a controlled environment, accessed only by Vera Mobility certified employees. So it sounds like they follow similar security that you know many entities have to follow.
Okay.
So really what I'm wanting to just get a sense of from the board, if it's something that you want me to pursue and say, yep, we're willing to jump in. Really, regardless of the company or Onondaga County, it's in service of safety for our students. And so if people know that cameras are on the buses, perhaps they'll be a little slower and higher.
So what are our thoughts?
I mean, I think it's great. I like the idea of it. I like the visibility and the mindfulness. As Gene said, my only concern was, you know, who had access to
Yeah.
servers and who shared with, and but it sounds like it's an internal and no different than.
Yeah.
Anybody have any objections? Really, that's,
Yeah. I don't, yeah.
we're not the first school district. There are many
I was just
school
gonna ask
districts
that.
Have gone before. I think FM, Janesville, DeWitt, Lafayette added them not too long ago. Right now, Marcellus is on the docket as well as Solvay, and I think OCS.
Okay.
So those are, but they seem to be capturing them 3 school districts at a time. So, again, you know, it's
Yeah.
really up to the board if you want me to pursue it. Again, I think there was a story I saw not too long ago on social media. One of our buses stopped and a car went by.
Yeah, it's shocking that it happens, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and certainly I've seen buses on our country roads and you see it, you know, I mean, it's a big safety concern for sure.
So I do think if people know that cameras are
Yeah.
on there, it might give them a little pause.
I was gonna ask, in the last year or two, has, what has been the frequency of that happening for our district? Has bus garage reported that out about? Yeah,
Yep, we do get reports of that. Like you
So
said,
good, I
it's a
think.
surprise, but
Yeah.
it does happen. I may not even know the extent of it, you know, I have heard that it does happen. But, yeah.
All right, so no one objects. We can move forward.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I will move forward.
All right, we will move on to personnel. Approval of personnel items. Resolve that the Board of Education approves the following personnel items. You can see them listed there before you. 6.1, through 6.7. Can I have a motion?
Motion just.
Justin? Second, Jen. Questions or comments about any of those items before we vote?
The only thing I just want to point out, so you may be wondering, Carrie Boyle is splitting the position with Lauren Sewell, who we previously put forward.
All right.
So I didn't want, if someone's looking at the pay per week, I didn't want someone to think that we're paying Carrie less. It's just she's splitting the position with someone else.
Right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, moving on to item 6.2, modification of retirement of instructional staff. Whereas on November 17th, 2025, the Board of Education adopted a resolution accepting the retirement of Miss Kathleen Ryan, effective November 11th, 2026, and whereas Miss Ryan has requested to modify her retirement date. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the resolution pertaining to Miss Ryan adopted on November 17th, 2025 is hereby modified nunc pro tunc, which means now for then, as follows. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the following personnel items: 7.1.1, retirement of instructional staff, Kathleen Ryan, effective 20/30/2026. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves and ratifies an agreement between the district and Ms. Ryan incorporated into the minutes of this meeting. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? Erica? Questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to consent agenda, approval of consent agenda items. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the following consent agenda items. You can see them listed there before you, 7.1 through 7.7. Can I have a motion?
Motion meeting.
Amy,
Second, Jen.
Jen? Questions or comments on any of those before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, informational items.
Yeah, so just some informational items. I'm noticing there's a little typo there. It's actually March 30th. So March 30th to April 3rd is our spring break. So next week, students are on spring break. Just a reminder of that. The 26-27 student board member application and process is going to be initiated on April 6th. So Mr. Seavey will help get the application out to students in grades. Well, really, it's any student in grade 10 and 11 right now. So it could be an 11th grader or a 12th grader next year. And so those applications will go out to students. They'll have 3 weeks to complete them, and then we'll do an interview process with a committee. And then we will announce a student board member for the 26-27 school year in early May. Just a reminder, Board of Education elections will also be on May 19th for the budget vote. And those petitions are available from Colleen O'Leary, the district clerk, and they're due April 20th by 5 p.m. We are going to have, and again, Brian has been spearheading this, a drunk driving simulation. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about it, just so everybody is aware of the plan and the extent to which this is really a true simulation for students.
Yes, I think Gene is overselling the idea that Brian's driving this, but I appreciate the credit. So I had worked in the fall to get Mary Angelillo to come do her presentation for us. The thing I didn't realize is while I was doing that, we had one of our seniors in Mr. Cooper's professional pathways program, Claire Chase, who actually wants to orchestrate a true drug driving simulation here at the school. So it turned into just like a beautiful marriage of, you know, the presentation that Ms. Angelillo did last week, as well as we have coming up with Claire. So what this is, you may have heard about it in other schools, you may have seen it, like I was a part of this when I was in high school, 20 years ago, but essentially what it's gonna be is we're gonna have a donation of 2 different vehicles that are, crashed together. that are gonna be positioned in our senior parking lot. We're gonna have all the cars kind of exited from the lot that morning. We're gonna do tons and tons and tons of communication up front. But the idea is that we're gonna run a live simulation with students, live after the fact, after the crash, of kind of the ramifications from fallout. So we're gonna have some student actors that are all gonna be seniors. Whereby, you know, we had one of them who was driving under the influence, hit another one. Claire has been working very intentionally with, the Maves Ambulance Service, our Onondaga County Sheriff's Office. We have, the Mercy One flight helicopter is gonna be coming in, and we're gonna airlift an injured student out of here. The kids are gonna come in the morning. They're gonna get all, you know, dolled up to the nines with their Hollywood makeup artists and, you know, their fake injuries. It's gonna have the morning of prom, which is very intentional and timely, to kind of send the message that's hopefully gonna feel as real as possible. And we understand that it's gonna be a little bit traumatic and also a little bit, sensitive in the way that it's gonna be on the morning of prom. But the idea was to make it as big of an impact as we possibly could, so we thought no better way than planning it for the day of. So what'll happen that morning, students are gonna go about their business first and second period. Starting third period, we're gonna have a 911 dispatch call that gets displayed over the PA system here. Whereby we're gonna have one of our student actors, you know, making a 911 call with an actual 911 dispatch. It's gonna be all, you know, in-house here. And then we're gonna invite the kids to come outside. They're gonna come outside, they're gonna see that, you know, it's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be students yelling and screaming and, you know, calling for help that were just part of an accident. You know, we'll have the first responders on scene. They're gonna assess, you know, the medical condition of the kids. We'll have a student who is dead upon arrival. We'll have another student who is banged up and needs, you know, serious medical attention, is gonna be, you know, taken out of here in an ambulance. We'll have another student, like I said, being airlifted out of here in a helicopter. I think that's gonna be a little bit of a dramatic scene. We'll have our inebriated driver conduct a field sobriety test with local sheriffs, that will end in his arrest, and we'll leave the back in the police car. Students at the end of all of it are gonna be invited into the auditorium. We're gonna have a first pull up around the corner. When we get into the auditorium, you're gonna see the student senior picture on display on the big screen with a casket out in front, and Claire's gonna do some, you know, some necessary closure component to it, and then I'm gonna deliver a little bit of a closure as well. Like I said, it's gonna be a lot. These things, if you've seen or been a part of any of them before, are incredible. They have such a huge impact, but they are very traumatic. So we're gonna have our support team on staff, ready to go to, you know, accept kids and staff members. We're anticipating some staff members that are gonna actually be upset by this. So we're gonna have kind of our full court press support team on hand. We'll also be communicating this up front and have, you know, the obvious opt-out procedures in place if, you know, students or families of students do not want their kids witness to any of these things, then certainly, you know, there's gonna be the opt-out where they can stay inside and, you know, be in our library during the action.
Any questions about that?
Have we ever done anything like that before here?
To my knowledge, it happened once, but it was before most people who currently are employed here were employed here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be a really powerful experience. And I'm glad that you're gonna have some extra support on hand, you know, because I think that, you know, you never know how, you know, how that will impact students and, so, yeah.
And again, the opt-out is gonna be very
Yeah,
important. anyway,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a good reminder, I
Yeah.
think, right now, especially students at this age, who think they're invincible.
I know. Yep.
So, just a good reminder, and again, they know it's acting, they
Yeah,
know these kids
yeah,
that are actors, so
yeah.
it's really just helps put them in the perspective of, yeah.
Yeah, and it's grades 9 through 12. Yes,
Yes,
yep,
9 to 12.
yep, yeah.
And truly, like, I mean, with a little bit of oversight from both Tyler and myself, it's student led, it's driven by parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think truly family members who have lost somebody from drunk driving appreciate, you
Yeah.
know, I'm sure Matt's mom would,
Yeah.
Angelilo's mom who came here, just to remind kids especially.
Yeah,
of
for sure.
dangers of drinking and driving.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Well, then the next thing is April sixth, is our next board meeting, and that meeting really, essentially is when we will put the final budget forward, to the board for adoption.
Mhm.
And that's it for information items.
Okay. All right. So at this time, we will move into executive session. Resolve that the meeting in public be adjourned and an executive session be convened for the purpose of discussion of personnel. Can I have a motion? Jen,
Second, Justin.
Justin? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.